Good morning. Happy Thursday. I have Neuro Coffee in hand and it is perfect.
My question is so as I see it, we could do a lot of things right with a client and restore a lot of movement variability, get the system to be more adaptable and all of that. But if they leave the training room and they start walking poorly with a bad gait pattern, then it'll essentially reverse those adaptations, or it'll at least cause a negative interference. So my question is, do we just assume that once we've restored movement variability to the system that they're going to walk better, or should we actually teach our clients how to walk if there's a significant problem with their movement variability?
What they're going to demonstrate to you is how they're managing forces when they're walking, right? It's very difficult to identify. Then they can show you things as to how they are actually strategizing to move through space, but all they're doing is solving a problem. So they're taking whatever constraints that they have, so their physical structure, whatever they've learned, whatever abilities that they have, and then they have internal forces and external forces to manage as they walk across the ground. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a solution, right? So you don't teach them how to do that. They just do it. But they're giving you a representation of where they may have a limited capability. And so then your job is to identify that. So rather than teaching them how to walk and saying, oh, they're going to walk out with a bad gait pattern and ruin all of my good work, what they're telling you is that they didn't recapture another strategy that allowed them to make a change that you saw was initially unfavorable and then move towards what you would perceive as being more favorable.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So
Okay.
you don't have to teach them. It's like so you give somebody an activity with an intent to make a change in their movement capabilities. And then what you should then do is you have a test, right, of some sort, right? So I say, okay, I'm looking at you. There's something I see that I'm not thrilled with. I intervene in some way, and then I do a retest. And when I say that, it's not like a formal test or anything. It's like, it could be literally, okay, now let me see you split squat. Did the split squat get better? Good, then the intervention was effective. So that's a learning-based adaptation in almost every situation, because you don't have time to change fitness on anybody under those acute circumstances, right? So again, it's a learning-based adaptation. And so your question mark is did I give you the appropriate strategy for you to learn something new, to demonstrate something new? And then did you do enough of that your system actually learned to adapt to that?
Bill, when you say you lose ER, you lose it in the measurement, or you lose in
In the measurement.
Okay.
Well, what's the difference? Right? I mean, you're losing ER spaces, right?
Right.
So if the pelvis, do you understand the reorientation, Joe?
I think I do, but maybe
okay.
not.
Well, let's just talk about it. So if you buy a kinesiology book and they look at the stuff back here and they say that, oh, these are the external rotators, right? Until you start to do this. Or if I do this, right? So as the stuff that's attached to the femur from the pelvis, if I move towards any degree of traditional hip flexion, if you will, they change direction of pull. They become internal rotators. So if I do this and they become internal rotators, they're going to bring this along for the ride, right? And so the more anterior orientation I have, the more external rotation I'm going to lose. That's why the anterior orientation, or that's why the ER measure is such a useful measure for the anterior orientations. And then you compare the two sides, and right away you start to get this beautiful picture of like, oh, the left side's more forward. That means he's pushing more from the back side, which means I'm going to have this kind of a flatter orientation and turn. Whereas if the right side's more forward, that's going to be tipping me up on an oblique. Now keep in mind that there's a lot of straight aheads and then there's a lot of obliques. Like I could literally go like that, and I can create an infinite number of directions between those two orientations. And so that's why you'll get some varying degrees of ERs on IRs throughout. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
In regards to everything you just talked about, I know sometimes people have an easier time like rotating to the left or rotating to the right. So I was wondering if you could just talk about that a little in context of the fact that people posturally tend to rotate right more, and how like maybe someone who has an easier time directionally rotating to the left in terms of range of motion, how that might present.
Well, some people are okay. So we have some physical structure stuff, right? That makes you a little bit better turner than other people. You have superficial strategies that will take your capacity to turn away from you. So sometimes that's intentional with training, and sometimes that's an accidental byproduct of structure or training. And so again, some people are just going to have an easier time managing these strategies. So the people that come to see me, for instance, so they typically have pain-related issues or performance-related issues where they have interference. They're dealing with these forces that they have to manage, and their strategy is less effective than they would like it to be. And so again, all you're looking at is people that can manage it better than others, so they turn well, and then the people that don't turn as well have problems. So, and again, it might be an oversimplification for you, but that's the reality. So and again, that's why, some of these turning tests, like if you ever do like a seated rotation with a patient or a client, and then you do your intervention, and then you do your retest, and it gets better. So what happened? Well, you just gave them more capability to manage all of these forces. And so now they can control the turns much more effectively. Some people just have it, some people don't. I always make reference to the normal curve, like a bell-shaped curve. I don't see average. I never see average people, because average people just don't have problems. Okay, so why do we expect anybody else to have the same adaptability? Why do we put all of these people into a category and say, this is better, this is worse? Because there's going to be some people that are adaptable to it, and there's going to be some people that can't. And then they look at the people that can't, and they say, well, this is the rule then, because so we were born to run on grass because primitive man ran on grass. Primitive man ran on grass because they didn't have asphalt, and they didn't have Nike Freeze and all sorts of stuff like that, right? So let's not romanticize primitive man all that much, because it's not that sexy, because think about all the smells and stuff that they had to live through. So what we're actually having a discussion about is like, who's adaptable and who's not. It's like, so if you're gonna have to run on asphalt, guess what? You might not be the person that can run on asphalt. Maybe your system just doesn't tolerate it. Maybe you haven't learned an appropriate strategy. Maybe you haven't trained well enough to be able to tolerate it. Maybe you did something stupid and you raised your training output too fast. And so now your system, which could have absorbed it if you did it more gradually, just can't do it. And so it breaks instead. You just have to look at this from an adaptability standpoint. There's going to be some people as I am fond of saying, is like, there are some people that would have been food for something else in a more primitive situation, because they're not well designed to remain upright nor move quickly across the ground, right? I mean, that's just the reality. So I don't know what animals were around when man first showed up, but I imagine there was a lot of big angry animals that were very hungry, and the really slow people didn't survive. And so we're just talking about the same thing. We're just talking about an adaptability problem, right? Some people can run barefoot and be perfectly fine. Some people can't. Some people can run on asphalt. Some people can't.
And
not everybody has the adaptability to do anything that they please.
Is adaptability, is that something we can gauge at all, or is it we put them through?
Yeah, you train them and you go, what can you do?
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
I mean, that's a small dose of reality. Sometimes you actually got to do stuff to figure out what stuff you can do.